we have desire for connection. And there are ways to like be okay with not having it met. And I think the first step is like,
I haven't created this space to be alone, and it got to me actually. And today, like, I came to this very platform, just like to chill, meditate, be in nature, and whew, boy.
this is like the third community of sorts that I've lived in within the last sort of 7 or 8 months. So I lived in a community in France for 2 months. Then I set up a little group house in Bali for 2 months where we hosted events and stuff. And it was smaller, there's 3 of us living together. And now living here, and I'm like, oh yeah, there were like pros and cons to each of those. And like there are elements of this place that I just like awesome. And there are elements of this that I might want to be like slightly different.
She invited me another time just with her to explore contact dance with oil.
Contact dance with oil.
Yeah.
And no clothes.
Only underwear on genitals.
Genital underwear.
Yeah.
Best kind of underwear.
Yeah.
Or the worst kind of underwear, depending what you use. Yeah, this thing of like when there's some readiness to do so, even if there's fear there, to like put myself forward to the just beyond the edge of the comfort zone, and I just know how powerful facilitating and hosting and being a central point is for finding more connection, because then the connection comes to you in a sense, although you're making that forward step. So that's been quite key.
Curious to know some insights you have on loneliness and how you live it here. Do you feel lonely now?
Alrighty.
Yeah, already. So, do you wanna say who are you?
So who am I? I am Simmo. You are Bastien. We each have a podcast, and it seems that they cross over a little bit.
What's the name of your podcast?
Mine's Road to Connection, primarily on YouTube. It's a podcast and YouTube channel about loneliness and the route out of that and people's relationship to that. Yeah, Road to Connection. It's on Spotify and YouTube.
Mm-hmm. I have a podcast, but it's in French. It's called Vis ta vie bordel. So for the French people or speaking people, you can find it on Spotify. And mainly I'm trying to interview guests that allow to reconnect to ourselves, to other and nature, so we can fall back in love with life and take care of it. And I'm now traveling 6 months with my van, going and meeting people in communities, and yeah, I guess it's why I'm here at the garden.
Yeah, we both found ourselves here meeting. How long have you been here now?
1 week.
A whole week?
Yeah.
Wow, I remember the first time we met. Do you remember the first time we met?
Nope.
You were just coming out of the shared kitchen, and you were at the tail end of a group had just arrived, and we shook hands, and I felt an immediate warmth and like lightness and fun in you, and then I think soon after that we started talking about our projects, and it seemed like there was a lot of crossover. Yeah, and hearing your introduction to your podcast there, I'm reminded again that that framing really resonates with me. I'm curious what the translation is of the name of your podcast.
It's really hard, and I've tried to translate it with people that speak really good English and French, but it's basically says it's a play on word about like go the hell live your life, like
Live the hell out of your life.
yeah,
Like get enthusiastic and live it as much as possible.
something like that.
Yeah, interesting.
And I guess it is rooted in being able to emancipate yourself from your education and parents and school system and the frame you have been raised in, to be able to truly live your own life and not the life that has been projected onto you, that you try to project back onto those expectations.
Yeah, this sort of default cultural programming that so many people seem to just live within, and it's difficult to question and within that is so so much dysfunction emerges. And I think that's the kind of focus of my podcast, is like how loneliness emerges from the way we live, but like how we find ourselves in disconnected from ourselves, disconnected from nature, so many people, and so disconnected from each other.
Would you want to try to describe the garden and the place that unites us, and why you were coming here, with what kind of intention, and is it fulfilled?
Yeah. What is this place and why are we here? I describe myself sometimes as an involuntary nomad, and like I've had this incredible luxury of being able to really be wherever I want for a long time now. And with that comes like the paradigm of choice. There's so many options of like where I can be. And there's like this search for perfection sometimes. And it's like, well, nowhere's perfect. And like, it's so hard to decide where to base my life now after traveling for so long. But what I found when I look back at my life is like the times that were most nourishing were living in community and like being amongst a group of people, being able to find space within that, but being able to find connection with it. And I heard about the garden about a year ago, and I just saw like this bullet point list that they put on their website, which is like a bunch of things that I am really interested in and that I see as like cultivating of this connection to self, nature, others. And I was like, this community seems really cool. And then I knew a few people, 3 people, I guess, before I came that I met Andre, who's the founder, I guess, and the owner, and 2 other people who had been here. And I was like, yeah, that's a place I really want to explore and see if it's, see what happens. And there's a lot of like just like open to possibility and trying to like let go of expectation and just see what it was like. And I've been here, I signed up for 2 weeks to start with. Time is weird here. I can't remember if I've been here 3 or 4 weeks now. So time just seems inconsequential. And I'm going to be here at least another 2 weeks, and maybe I'll stay longer beyond that. I'm not sure.
What makes you want to stay more?
I'm really trying to let go of just trying to control what happens in the future at the moment. I think there's like a balance to be had. I'm for a long time I've really been about like how do we design our lives in the most optimal way to like nourish ourselves the most and like get the best connection. And with that comes this like tension of like, but it has to be perfect. And I'm trying to let go of that and just go with the flow, and just like there's this attitude of like the universe delivers and you can like either grab it or miss it. And I'm just trying to let things emerge and see what happens organically. So this is kind of the step I'm on in the process, I guess, which feels like the last few years. I've probably been in 25 countries or moved countries 25 times in the last 3 years or so. I think you've been moving a lot lately, but for a slightly shorter time. Is that right?
Yeah, I've been traveling now for 2 months and a half with my van. I've traveled a lot more before, but I also try to be grounded in the place now. I found like in the Alps in France, and there's this place I almost like sold my flat a year ago because
you almost, or you did
almost
sold it a year ago. And it's a flat you've lived in for years,
for 2 years,
and
now.
The town you've lived in all your life.
7 years.
7 years, okay.
But like I had the opportunity of selling it, and for like a good amount of time I was like, okay, let's do it. I take the money, I travel for 2 years and shoot like videos and documentaries and go like doing what I do now. But somehow like let's say a friend who is more in the norm of society got to me and told me like, you should not let go of this flat and secure it.
And this was like financial sort of wisdom, or
yeah, I think so.
In there from the viewpoint, yeah.
And it made me reflect on why am I selling it, and what does it bring, like having it or not. And now I'm really, really glad I didn't sell it, because I'm now traveling and I have the freedom of traveling thanks to this flat, but also a secure place I can go back to. And there's a saying that say we as humans are in between like the tree and the canoe. The tree because it's rooted like on the soil, and it's like the network and the community, and it's grounded and it can stand like present, and it goes deep in the hell to rise on heaven.
Yeah.
And the canoe is more like the adventure, the unknown, and the uncertainty that can bring really like lots of things to life until you realize that the canoe is made out of the tree.
Oh.
So now I try to be mindful of this balance I want to have in my life of like exploring and integrate also in myself first, but also within my community, what I discover along this journey.
And so the garden is you're dipping into the tree again suddenly. You had a little bit of canoe and you're not like in the fully rooted tree because maybe that's like home base. And this is, I don't know enough about you. For me, it feels like it's not well, everyone will leave here, I think, in October, pretty much for the winter. And so it can't be the permanent tree, but there's some semblance of like temporary tree. Or does it feel like the tree or the canoe while you're here?
For me, it's more the canoe because it's part of my exploration of 6 months. But I see what you're meaning, and it is kind of trying to find a way to build a tree, exploring the garden here and how people behave and live in community, in nature, having space to share, but also to take time for yourself and create with the synergies of people. And so yeah, it's trying to gather more information to either build a new tree or nourish my own tree.
Love that.
In my city.
Yeah. Realizing now, suddenly this is like the third community of sorts that I've lived in within the last sort of 7 or 8 months. So I lived in a community in France for 2 months. Then I set up that little group house in Bali for 2 months where we hosted events and stuff. And it was smaller. There's 3 of us living together. And now living here, and I'm like, oh yeah, there were like pros and cons to each of those. And like there are elements of this place that are just awesome. And there are elements of this that I might want to be like slightly different if it was going to be my permanent tree. And so there is this like element of like, it's a research mission. For me, there is also a slight feeling of stability here, which is kind of wild. It's like just being somewhere for a few weeks feels stable to me at the moment. It's nice. And like, it's interesting because I'm living in a teepee here, like probably more than 50% of the people here are living in these 2x2 meter teepees. And I've been in there a month and it just feels totally as like fine as living in like a 3-bedroom apartment. It's so wild. I don't feel any need for anything else. That's like quite surprising to some degree. I lived in a tent for a couple of months like 15 years ago when I worked at music festivals. And I remember it being all, like really great. Just like unzipping into like nature and trees and sky. And it's the same. It's like, yeah, unzipping, you're next to the bed and I'm just immediately outdoors in this. It's like, it's really, it calms and the nervous system feels calm to walk out into that. And then I walk out into the, I don't think I have my ideal routine here. I don't feel as grounded as I would like to. I'm curious how that is for you. So, how are you feeling here since you've been here? Is it only 1 week? You said, yeah.
Only 1 week.
So,
but I share what you said with my van. I love the van for this. It's like the world is my garden, and like opening the door and being outside is.
Where's been the most amazing place you've opened the door?
So many.
Yeah.
So many. Like I have a picture I will show you. Like just opening the doors and you see the sea and a little, like really small island, just like 2 kilometers away. It's like beautiful frame. And it's been around the sea a lot. But
where was that spot?
In Galicia.
Just north of Portugal, in Spain.
In Spain, yeah, northwest.
Yeah.
And I love being able to open the door and listen to the birds, have my private space. And I think also it might be for you that it's possible to live in this tent and teepee because you can go in the shared space.
Right.
And you have more things to be able to use.
There's facilities everywhere.
Yeah, and really chill spot around, and it's beautiful. And you were asking about my routine. Do I feel grounded? It's only been a week, so no. And
have you got any routine here yet? Like something you've been doing daily?
I've tried to contact dance a lot.
Yeah.
And I love this practice because it starts my day with just awakening my body
But
slowly.
his Felix's sessions, he does 5 days a week, 3 hours in the morning each day.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, sorry to interrupt.
And yeah, just like awakening my body and trying to take care of it and go slowly to a rise up of the energy, and also being more in contact with person. And I realized days I did not do it felt chaotic.
There was more chaos in your system,
Yeah.
in the way you navigated the day.
Yeah.
If you hadn't had this contact dance, I've got a video on my channel about contact improvisation dance, just me talking about why I think it's so powerful for how we navigate life. Actually, it's taught me so much. And I've not been doing it here because I've got ankle injuries, but hearing you speak right now, I'm like, yeah, I want to go anyway and just like learn to navigate better with my ankle and slow down. And what is it that allows that calming and clarity out of the dance for you?
So much to say about dance and contact dance, and I'm not a dancer, but I really feel that there are so many parallels from dancing and contact dance to life in general. Just going back to the body, calming the mind, improvising also, like you learn how to not plan what you're going to do and adapt.
Yeah.
Like every time, on a second to a second, it's like
Yeah.
moving up. I'm
And
doing
ease
this.
with that.
Oh, this person is doing this. Okay, let's follow and then lead. It's like, whoa, we can co-lead this thing together. But in order to do that, you have to understand how you communicate to yourself and how you communicate to others and how people communicate to you.
Right.
So it's like really, really beautiful practice.
And it's all non-verbal, but it carries through so much to like full human interaction off the dance floor, that attunement to what the other person needs, where there's like tension, where there's ease, and just like finding a mutual energy that like nourishes that connection.
Definitely. And for your ankle, I think it's really interesting to go there anyway, with knowing there's this constraint on you and taking care of it, while still enjoying other part of the body that can move and dance and be in contact. But you just like, and it's a practice you can do. You put a constraint, like, okay, today I have no arm, and let's go with the exercise with no arm.
Yeah.
And let's see what happens.
Right. I noticed I've been telling myself this, because I injured my ankle like 10 months ago, and I've just been telling myself this story that when I go to dance, like I don't have the ability to control myself. And I've been reinforcing that story. And it's been true. I've gone to dance a few times and I've just like not been able to rein in the energy, and I've ended up dancing and making my ankle worse. But it's a story I'm telling myself. And I'm like, I can go to a dance and choose to like, I'm not going to let myself injure this ankle further. I can make that decision more clearly in myself. And it's been a little bit unconscious, I noticed, that I've just reinforced this story. And so I think this week I've been thinking about this a little bit, and then I really appreciate that encouragement. I'm gonna go dance actually this week, and like really focus on like let's learn again how to navigate with this injury, because that is who I am right now. I've got an ankle injury I need to work with. I wanted to pull back a bit because we're going to talk about the garden, and maybe just like give it like an introduction to what this place is, what's here, what's going on, what the facilities, what is this space, how much is there, who's all that kind of stuff. Yeah, what have you touched in on most here? Maybe before we deep dive, just like some headlines. So dance is something obviously that you've touched in on here frequently. What other things have really like grabbed you since you've been here?
I'm gonna try to describe why I came here.
Nice.
To explain what I was seeking. So I've heard the garden about, like, on a Facebook page about the Nowhere Festival, the burn in Spain.
The Spanish Regional Burning Man Festival, yeah.
And what attracts me here, because I'm exploring different ways of living, it's that it seems to address creativity and joy as an exploration to make a culture community based on this and see what arises. And it felt like a more conscious community where the space was held in a manner that you can really lean into trying to reconnect to yourself, to others, and to nature, but with a different approach that I've been exploring with like more activist people that won't go so far in the joy and creation. And that's why I'm here exploring this. And what did I found is, I think there's this space is really well held in some ways, like the workshops many workshops that can be improvised by anyone who want to teach and learn or co-create and collaborate on new project and art. All those discussion we can have with people about ideas, that it's like a really beautiful space for synergies. And it's also a really big space to get triggered in some way.
Yeah, and it's like a container for that in a sense. So it's like I'm coming
Exactly.
here and I know it's going to happen. So it's a place where I can work with that. Yeah, it's like keep going. Sorry, yeah.
And I realize is that
I felt a bit of defensiveness in me there, that I was agreeing, but I didn't want people to like think, oh, that's bad. And so I just wanted to like iterate that I think that's like a really great thing when it's in a controlled setting. I don't want to be triggered all the time in life, but the fact we're in a controlled setting where that can emerge and we can work with it is like really useful for our growth.
And I realize that I allow myself to get triggered and to listen to it and to share with, because I know I can take care of myself, but it's a good place where I know people want to listen and want to help. And I want to be present also for others to try to work this out. And we're speaking up today at lunch with Sylvia about leaning to the fear, try to understand it, be grateful for it also, and what can it teach you. And I feel in those spaces you can do this to grow out of it. And the idea is not getting triggered and like suffer. And maybe it can lead to this for a while, but try to grow out of it.
Great.
I know you've been triggered also maybe sometimes here.
Sure.
How did you process this? And
it's funny, the most recent triggered situation is like so strong in me, I can't remember any of the others. I'm sure there's been, I guess, in the beginning, there's been like an arc to my time here. And the first couple of weeks were quite challenging. I was a bit sick and I found myself being much more introverted than usual. I'm usually like pretty socially confident and extroverted. And I chose to just allow myself to feel introverted. I think it was partly felt like a little bit of an experiment. It's like, how is it to just really sink back and not put myself forwards and not be like the loud sort of person I can be sometimes, and that one that's a bit more playful and active. And that's challenging because I felt a lot of disconnection. I didn't know how to bring myself with people in a way that felt nourishing sometimes. And so that was interesting. And then gradually I just like I found myself getting healthy again. And it feels like each week here is like an opportunity for a new start. You get a batch of people leaving, a batch of people arriving. It's like, okay, next chapter, what am I going to experiment with, like slightly shifting this week? And I think for the whole multiple weeks I've been here, there's been this like increase in like just expressing and joy and just gradually finding a bit more flow. It sounds a bit woo-y. I think because it's not been entirely like structured and planned, I'm just like kind of going with the flow. Like, how have I worked with triggers? So one of the triggers was for myself, just like choosing to be introverted and noticing. I'm journaling every day. I'm talking to people. I'm talking to friends both here and friends elsewhere. I'm facilitating work. I've facilitated one workshop on authentic relating. I think that was really connective. That opened something up new for me. I think like creating events and being the host, it just immediately makes you like a slightly more central figure in a social dynamic. And for me, that brought me sort of an increased level of feeling of connection with people here. So that was quite significant. Then I was kind of instigator of the open mic night last weekend, and I got a lot of encouragement from that. And then performing, a lot of people gave me like positive feedback, and that felt really nourishing. And so I think there's this thing of like
Beautiful voice.
Is that one more time?
Beautiful voice.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, this thing of like when there's some readiness to do so, I want to put like even if there's fear there, it's like put myself forward to just beyond the edge of the comfort zone, and I just know how powerful facilitating and hosting and being a central point is for finding more connection, because then the connection comes to you in a sense, although you're making that forward step. So that's been quite key. And then, yeah.
You're speaking a lot about connections,
Mm-hmm.
and I know you work on loneliness, and I'm really curious to understand how you feel this experience in community confronting your loneliness subject.
Yeah, in this particular community,
Does it bring insight? Does it cause to anything?
I think it's like, there's this question of like, there's so many people in the world, and I want to find the ones who are like compatible with me and build depth with them. And I think there's a mechanism in me where which I'm still working with and finding clarity on, which is something like, how do I select the people I want to get closer to? And there's a balance of like, I do want to have consciousness around that and not just let it be completely default, but at the same time I want it to flow. And this isn't a thought I've put much time into at all, but I feel like there's something about, there's a lot of people here, and so how do we choose who we connect with? And then there's like fear of connection with some people. And one thing in the beginning when I was feeling that low energy, there was a lot of intimacy around it. There's a lot of cuddling in this space, and there's a lot of like beautiful people. And so I noticed some like body consciousness in myself, because there's like nakedness here, and there's like cuddling, and there's like, oh, how do I navigate like boundaries is another one. And so those like insecurities have come up a little bit here, which have been interesting, and just noticing is always opens up the space for like working through stuff for me. And so like noticing those two things, like, oh, I'm feeling a bit body conscious, and I'm feeling like a bit insecure about how to go about like having a bit more physical nourishment with people. Just noticing that allowed me then to like make a conscious decision about how do I want to work with that, and I just want to like be more comfortable with it. So I just thought, I'm going to get naked today with other people, and so I got in the hot tub, the first thing I did, and then just like feeling more comfort in being unclothed in nature, which just feels really nourishing. Like if I was on my own, there would be no discomfort in that, and I don't want there to be discomfort in that when there are other people around as well. If nakedness is welcome. Loneliness. There were times when I'm like, I think one big thing was like, I want to be connected with people here, but I also need to find my own space at times to re-energize. It's like, I want both those things at the same time. Well, I can't have both.
I think it's really hard to find this balance still. And it's crazy because I've been living in my van for like 2 months and a half now, and I've got used to being lonely with
Lonely or alone?
Alone. Yeah, alone.
That's an important distinction, right?
How do you make the difference?
Well, I would say lonely is
a feeling,
a feeling of a feeling of discomfort, maybe unhappiness about not having the level of connection that you want, whether that's not having people around when you want people around, or when you're with people, not that connection not being nourishing enough for you. So I think you can be lonely when you're with other people because those people aren't nourishing. You can be lonely when you're alone because you want people to be with you, but you can be very not lonely and alone. You can be alone and like, yeah, I'm great being alone. The other weekend I spent alone when everyone went out to a festival. I was like, I want the connection, but I need to be alone. And I felt really good being alone. I wasn't lonely. It was very nourishing connection with myself. And so there's that choice to be made sometimes. And you were saying on the road,
I spend a lot of time alone, at peace.
Yeah.
But there's like this part of me wanting to connect and create and have fun and laugh with people that came at some point, and that's also why I love like bouncing back between being alone in my van and traveling and surfing and coming to places like this. But I come from a lone space to like a lot of
people everywhere constantly,
and trying to find the balance of listening to myself and not being in the FOMO of missing a workshop or missing a conversation or missing a moment in nature with people, having fun, or like yelling now as we hear people yelling in the forest and go crazy, and trying to have this routine that nourishes me, and so that I'm able to be present also for others and nourish them and they nourish me instead of being lonely in those connections.
Yeah, I think when I talk to people about community who have not spent time in community, I think a common worry is I won't have space enough for myself. And yeah, have you found space enough for yourself here sometimes? And if so, how do you do it?
I haven't done it a lot. I realize I did it the first like few days because it was I was maybe on the habits of being in my van and wanting to read a lot and to write a lot. And this is like alone space that I cherish. But slowly it went away, and I think since 2 or 3 days I haven't created this space to be alone, and it got to me a little bit. And today, like, I came to this very platform, just like to chill, meditate, be in nature, and whew, boy.
How was
good.
that?
It was so good.
How long were you here for?
Half an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what happened? What did you do?
Doing nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing.
You just sat.
Just sat, lie down, watching at the leaves,
Yeah.
listening to the sound of the birds, sound of the forest moving. Sometimes closing the eyes, trying to meditate. Also, I was I don't do this often, but I was just saying words of appreciation to root back to this very moment, because I was a lot in my head, and somehow I got trapped in this like loop of I don't have the time for this, I don't have this, and I wanted to reset this, and I took a cold shower also.
I'm curious about the words of appreciation. So you spoke occasionally as you were lying here, some words out loud, and they were kind of rooted you back and took you away from this sort of thought spiral of like that was destabilizing.
I did a lot of meditation. I did Vipassana retreat. I did like also a Tantra teacher training where I got to really lean into the spiritual path. And it was really interesting. So in my daily life, I don't practice it so much. Meditation sometimes. But yeah, I just feel those moments are crucial to get back to. And so the words is not a habit for me to just say to myself. Maybe I write it. But here I was lying down and just saying like, I'm grateful to hear the birds now and to take this moment to listen to them.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for like, and this is for me like coming back to the here and now. I feel great, you know?
Yeah. Because you're away from the story that this isn't okay and that I need to do this thing, and so I'm just here, and it brings that grounded presence.
And I kept as a way of coming back to here to shoot with you, I was trying not to leave this state of presence and slow. Even I knew I was a bit like late. Instead of like rushing and running, I tried to stay present and slow, doing the thing I need to do before I come.
Fantastic.
And I think it made a big change in how I can show myself today to you.
Fantastic. Yeah, and that's the beauty of just taking time to connect with ourselves and how that affects our connection with others. Yeah, you connected with nature and with yourself, and you're seeing the ramifications in the connection with me now.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Otherwise, we'd be just brawling on the floor right now.
Yeah, and trying to achieve something.
Trying to
achieve like something.
Well, exactly. Yeah.
Mind.
Maybe it's speeding. I think it's rubbing off on me. I feel a lot of calm. Well, before that drill started in Bergen, someone fixing up the 16-person hot tub. Yeah, I think so. In terms of like the infrastructure of this place, you're pointing towards something which is really great, which is there is a lot of space here, and despite of there being must be like 35 people here or something at the moment, very easy to find time away if one has to make the choice. And there is, I notice in myself also, this FOMO. So, oh, there are people laughing over there. I need to go over there and find out what's going on. Or there's a workshop, or people are doing stuff, or they're staying up late and partying, like dancing, or yeah. And it's like, oh no, I don't need to be with that right now. FOMO is such an interesting phenomenon because there's so much stuff happening everywhere in the world right now, right? We could be doing any of it, but we can also just be present. Just being present.
I'm curious to know some insights you have on loneliness and how you live it here?
I mean, live it.
Yeah. Like, do you feel lonely now?
I felt lonely since I've come here multiple times. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
I think it's been not being able to find the kind of connection I want sometimes. And just realizing sometimes I want a kind of connection that is not available. Maybe I want some form of like intellectual connection that I can't have. Maybe I don't have a girlfriend at the moment, and so not having like that kind of romantic intimacy. And so I think there's something with loneliness which is like, well, there are many different flavors of connection, and at times I have different kinds of desires for connection. Right now I'm feeling really nourished. Like, one of my desires for connection is like collaboration and having like deep discussions about topics like these, and so I'm like feeling very like there's no loneliness in me in this moment whatsoever, and it's like nourishing. But maybe later on there'll be some other impulse for connection that arises in me, and maybe I'll either notice it or I won't notice it, and if I don't notice it, it will still be in my body, and so there'll be a longing. I think the process of noticing more clearly, which meditation for me really helps with, and other practices, allows for that loneliness to dissipate more easily when it's temporary. And so I think there's this thing which is, we have desire for connection, and there are ways to like be okay with not having it met, and I think the first step is like getting clarity on our own internal mechanisms. Oh, this thing is arising, and it arises sometimes in me, and right now that thing that's arising is I want a kind of connection I'm not having. Cool, I can see that. I can sit with it. I can look at it clearly, and the more clearly I see it, the less it causes pain. I think there's a point at which like many people just never have the connection they want in their life, or very, very infrequently, and that's a lot more pain. And I think there's external solutions to that. We want to find connection. So here I can find connection with people, and I'm thinking daily to some degree. I'm thinking consciously daily as a journal. Who do I want to connect with? What do I want to connect over, so that I can make more conscious choices about where good connections can emerge. And I think people can do that in their real life, even if they feel they've got no connections. The steps that can be taken to start to build and reach out to make more contact with humans. And it's hard for a lot of people who have very little connection, because there's a lot of social anxiety and fear, and those things can be really strong. And I think the longer one goes without connection, the harder it is. And it's just taking that first step that starts to build momentum.
Were you in this situation at some point in your life?
I've never felt very lonely for a long time. I think I once felt lonely probably most of the time for a few weeks, for like 2, 3, 4 weeks. Most of the time strong, yeah. When's the loneliest you've been? Have you felt lonely much? I know. I'll try and think about that at the same time. I'm wondering, that's a good question. I not actually thought about when was I most lonely, like in terms of time and valence. I think, I not to immediately interrupted your thinking.
No, go ahead.
So I lived in a co-living experience, I lived in a house with like 16 people, 2 of whom suddenly appeared here yesterday, randomly. I lived with them 3 years ago.
Randomly?
Yeah, I didn't know they were coming.
No way.
Nick, I lived with 3 years ago, for 3 months in a big house with 16 people. And Morgan, I lived with there for a couple of weeks. He came briefly. And I lived in that house for 9.5 months. It was during COVID. And I didn't want to be there that long. It was we were in a COVID bubble. And I was just like really eager to get out into the world. And so I made a lot of good friends there. But at times it was hard finding the kind of connection I wanted. And I only spoke to 5, like I had meaningful conversations with 5 women in 9.5 months. Because it was a very male-skewed community. And so that was challenging, like not having female companionship very much. One friend I had cuddles with sometimes, and that was nice. But it was a very male, nerdy environment. And so that was hard to feel nourished at times, and I felt lonely there and a bit stuck, because it was, and I know a lot of people had much more challenging experiences during COVID than I did. It was a luxury to have people around still, and friends, but at times that was challenging, and it felt incredible to leave. Not that it isn't a great space, and I even recommend people go there often, but feeling trapped somewhere in a social situation you don't want to be in that's hard. And I know people must be stuck in I know people are stuck in much more challenging dynamics than that, far, far more. And so being stuck in a challenging social dynamic is tough.
Yeah, I feel it. I think there are ways, or like times I've been alone, felt lonely, so in my city, you know, like I'm kind of an extrovert and I make friends quite easily, but I could not find for a long time really meaningful connections.
Yeah.
Either it be more intellectual, just friends, good friends to share, to touch. I love I'm really tactile person, and I love like the touch. That's also why I love contact dance. Like, poof, it brings you this oxytocin which we need. And yeah, I've read somewhere that in the end we are lonely in facing our main problems and main like death and life challenges, and like going for your day, like only you can be there, which I find interesting to reflect on. And yeah, not maybe lonely, so this is a different like not it's about the feeling, but yeah, you're alone facing it.
Ultimately, we are the one who faces the thing we're facing.
Yeah.
Like, there's an issue in your life, your relationship ends. No one else is facing that but you, right?
You can be really compassionate and really be present for it.
Yeah.
But I'm facing it.
And you can have the support of people around you, but it's like and in that, what's that like for you then? Is aloneness a word that like resonates to describe that for you?
Aloneness?
Yeah.
Could you define aloneness?
Well, yeah, it's interesting. I think there's different connotations, eh? There's like the sense, well, yes, like literally I am the only one facing this issue. Like I got hit by a car and now I'm in hospital. But am I alone in that? If I have social support, in a sense, there's like this nourishment of others. If I'm like really self-resourced and I can actually find calm and even like strength from within that situation, there's a sense that like there's something bigger than me that's allowing me to be okay. And so what is aloneness? Yeah, great question. Yeah, I mean, I think that's that. I don't know, what is aloneness and what does it mean? And does it have to be a bad thing? Yeah, I think it's a great thing to really, for one, to think about, like, what is my relationship to aloneness and loneliness and being alone and dealing with my issues, and do I want support? Do I need support? When am I enough? Because I do believe ultimately we are all enough.
Yeah, definitely. It's a path to finding this feeling back.
Yeah, right. I know a lot of people struggle to feel compassion for themselves, and I think this is a crucial part of finding a nourishing life. Like, we need to love ourselves, and I know people who have transitioned, who've done a lot of work to get from a place where they didn't love themselves to where they did. So I know for many it is solvable through a variety of practices. And I've lost the thread a little bit. Aloneness. What's something I wanted to ask you?
Because we're in a community, it makes me realize that I've been witnessed sometime in my life that in some different country, not in France, but like more in Asia, communities are really still part of the life people live, and they live more with their elders, they like with their siblings, and also like spiritual communities.
Yeah.
And therefore, when something happened to someone, they are alone but surrounded with a community that supports them.
Yeah.
Which makes being alone maybe less lonely. And yeah, that some part is facilitated by the community, and you need also to show up for yourself at some point,
Right.
which is interesting. It's easier to show up for yourself if you feel surrounded,
Yeah.
and yeah.
And I think you're pointing towards something interesting in like how I think more so in the Western world we've moved towards a more individualistic way of being, and when emergencies strike, many people don't have someone there for them. Yeah, I think 18% of Americans, 18, say they have nobody to call on in an emergency. It's like 60 million people in America have nobody to call on when an emergency happens. And those numbers are similar in other countries. And so it's like...
In Japan, they name a minister of loneliness.
There was a minister of loneliness. Yeah. Oh, interesting. Well, that's cool.
Because it's a really big problem there.
And the Surgeon General, who I think is the highest kind of ranked medical professional in the US, he's really focused on loneliness as well. He's written a book on it, actually. So there was this study of over 300,000 people looking at health outcomes correlated with loneliness, and it showed, I can't remember the exact percentages, but I think it was like the bottom, people who didn't have close social connection compared to those who did, and I can't quite remember how that was defined, over a 7-year period, there was the increase in death, all-cause mortality, was the same as people who don't smoke versus people who smoke. This is like, there's these massive changes in health outcomes. And I think part of that is just not having support around when you need it. You come out of hospital from a serious operation and you're much more likely to like not be able to look after yourself well. And there's also, I think, probably physiological changes, like that when we don't have nourishing connection, there's things happening in our bodies. Like our mind and body are intimately connected. And I think that makes sense to me, that like the health deteriorates just as a result of feeling constantly lonely. It's brutal. I mean, I felt a little bit. Oh yeah, you spoke towards cities, and that was something I was thinking about earlier. When I moved to London a few years ago, I found it hard to make friends in London, which is wild. And I think if I went there now, it would be I would more easily. I've been mapping out like solutions to loneliness. I think I've got these action steps now, which I think would solve that now. I think crucial is just joining groups. And maybe not first time you're going to find a group where you make like good connection, especially in big cities, it's hard. But joining groups that meet very frequently with a shared goal, I think that's a massive win for people who feel social anxiety and social isolation, because you get to practice with the same people. There's no like, also you're in a group, so there's no pressure to like just have this one-on-one interaction. A lot of people are going to like dating apps to try and find connection.
Exactly with this.
Yeah, and it's one-to-one. It's like it's not French, and it ends up being something very different. And people, yeah.
And that's also what I reconned to a friend who was like talking to me about dating and apps and.
Have you used dating apps? No?
Yeah, definitely. But he was saying like, I don't know, I don't want to do it, but in the meantime, I really want to connect and find someone. And I told him, from my experience also using it, it feels lonely using it. I don't feel loneliness a lot in my life, but using them makes me lonely.
Yeah, can you work out what's going on there?
Because I think it's like trying to, like, it's consumption of profile of people that I don't know and I don't really maybe want to know. And yeah, and not going and finding really meaningful connection on it. And I say this, but my ex, I stayed 7 years with. I met her.
So it's possible, right? I met my ex. Sorry,
I'm trying to finish this. And what I was telling him was like, don't download an app.
Yeah.
Don't go on an app. Try to find a group, as you were saying, where you're gonna enjoy the path that takes you on, and you are going to learn something. You're gonna meet people that want to learn the same thing as you. So you're gonna build maybe a skill or like a talent or like an idea, and share this experience with people. And because of this, you will be exposed to more people, and you might connect with someone that has the same mindset as you. And it feels much more authentic. And just in doing this process, I feel move yourself toward connections, which is less direct to like a goal.
Right. So I must get the thing straight away, go on the date. We just like, the first interaction I'm going to have with you is like, we are going to see if we're going to have a lifelong relationship.
Less pressure on the relationship.
It's wild. It's so inorganic. That's not how most of our, like the vast majority of our ancestors immediately met as adults and like, let's see if we can be romantic together. They spent their entire lifetimes together. Well, I don't actually know. I don't know much enough about like the anthropology of human sexuality. I guess different tribes met, but I feel like it was probably pretty different from like a Tinder hookup. Of my like 5 or 6 most serious girlfriends, I met most of them in real life, and they were part of friend. Yeah, the 1, 2, 3. Almost all of them were part of friend networks or like activity networks. The last one I met online. I'm not saying it's not possible to meet people on a dating app. Of course, it's possible, right? But I think if you spend 1 hour a day on dating app, which is like some people spend much more time than that. That's 365 hours a year. If you're just talking like a 16-hour day, that's 20 days. Is it? It's like 20 days a year on dating apps. 20 days of your waking days of your entire year on a dating app. You could be spending that time really cultivating like deeper community connection within a practice that's like nourishing, building your like
Your life.
I think when we talk about dating, it's like you want to be an attractive partner, right? You want to show yourself as someone who is of value, and like you want value in a partner. You want someone who's doing cool stuff with their life. Do the same cool stuff that you want in a partner.
Definitely. Makes the process so much easier.
I guess it's hard if you're living somewhere like super isolated. If you live somewhere in a tiny town, maybe you just gotta move. Sometimes you gotta really take this risk and get out of town and just go somewhere where there's more stuff happening.
It echoes to me to something that I wanted to share earlier when you spoke about city and London and your experience of being alone in London and not being able to connect. I've seen a lot of my, not a lot, but some of my friends like changing lives and like quitting the norm life to go out of cities.
Yeah.
And I was really, really, really surprised of how much connection they got out there. It's like, because there are less people, the connection are more, they give more time to connect.
Yeah.
And they gather around projects that are similar.
Yeah.
So they help each other a lot. And I was really surprised how fast they created a new network.
Beautiful.
That like I think is really difficult to find in cities because
Yeah.
everyone has more agendas.
Right. I think there's a sweet spot. So I've lived in, if I count anywhere I've been more than 1 month, I've probably lived in more than 50 places. And I mapped them all out a few months ago. And I think there's like a distribution from like, I lived in some very small places and I lived in some huge places with more than 10 million people and some places with like 10 people. And so it's a place, this only has 30 people, right? But it's like a community. But if it's 30 people in like a village, my experience is that was not optimal. There was like an optimal sweet spot where the best times in my life were all actually in these kind of medium-sized places where I met the same people very frequently. If you're into like an activity, there's only one place to go for it kind of thing. If you want to join the running club, there's only one running club. Or if you, whatever it is, if you like chess, there's only going to be 15 people playing chess. And so it's like in a medium-sized place, there's enough stuff happening that you can all congregate around the shared interest. But it's small enough that you just bump into people constantly because there's only like 2 shops or like a couple of bars if you drink or whatever. But it's not so big that everybody's watered down into too many activities. And so that was interesting for me when I mapped that out. I was like, whoa, pretty much all the like top ranked times in my life were in, many of them were in medium-sized places. I think the other top times were in when I was really immersed in a group activity for many months as well. That was the big ones. Yeah, being in a sports team. I think if you're physically able to be in some kind of physical activity with a group of people. So there's something gets amped up when you're being physical. It allows for this like extra sense of freedom, I find.
Also,
you surfer, right?
Also art.
Art as well.
Art.
Where have you found the greatest
creativity.
community connection in your life? When was like the best crew of people and you just like, oh, this is so cool. These group of people are really close friends and you had a long time of great times with them.
This was a long time ago, but in Bangkok, when I arrived in Bangkok and I found two of my roommates that I really, really got along with. They were like brothers to me and we shared so much. And yeah, I think it was hard then when I come back to the city I'm now living in to not being able to connect this deep.
Where did you meet them?
At a party.
Yeah, and then you lived together.
Yeah.
So you lived together and you shared a lot of activities in Bangkok, having a fun time. How long were you in Bangkok?
6 months, but this was only 3 months.
Yeah, I lived in Bangkok for 2 months this year.
Nice.
And then so you had a great 3 months with those guys.
Yeah.
And then you left and you said that was challenging.
Just going back to a city where for a couple of years I could not find this deep relationship, like really true brother in blood, but not in blood, but yeah. And
do you have a sense of like a strategy that would allow people to like find that kind of tightness with it, or do you feel like it's kind of the luck of the universe sometimes?
Magic happening sometimes. Yeah, so it's like luck, just being your true self. The more that you can allow you to attract people that match your vibe. So I think this is important, working on yourself and being at the best you want to show up to the world. And because it's good for you, it's good for the people, and this will be magnetic and attract the good people. And then also make the effort when you find people that you seem to really connect with, to invest time for this relationship. Because I feel like in the city I've been living, maybe I did not do that enough. Now,
when you look back, you see, there were people you really kind of thought they were cool, but you didn't put enough time into like really cultivating it.
Because I have my own agenda, they have their own, and trying to create memories and experiences to build this connection is so important. And I see here, like I've been here for 1 week, I've met like a bunch of people, and somehow with some people they were an experience that now we can relate to, that got us closer. Either it be a beautiful conversation that we took time to invest and like close out from all the like possibilities around, or and
this will be one, no doubt, for me, this conversation. I'm sure I'll be like, that was a beautiful afternoon, I'm really happy we're doing this. And this is like an example of that. Hey, it's like collaborate, and sometimes it's a plan, and sometimes it just emerges and you're like, let's take this moment. And so there's been conversations and there's been little adventures.
There has been also a girl I've been connecting with now, because we did this workshop, and there was this moment where we were just trying to find the boundaries and walking toward each other, and the person would put their hand to stop when it was too close, like to find this boundary of like, where can it go?
In fact, this is the first time we deeply interacted as well, was in the same activity. It's interesting.
And I found so interesting that with this girl, we didn't speak before, like 1 or 2 words. And this eye gazing and going toward her was deeply intense.
What was the feeling you were having in that moment?
Intimacy. Like I shared intimacy with her. And somehow also some arousal of like sexual energies. And it was really, really beautiful and intense. There's no words and no touch. And just the quality of presence we were both able to share in this moment was amazing. And after this, we connected so deeply. And
what happened immediately afterwards? We finished the activity with a sharing circle, and you named to the circle, not so explicitly that you just have now, but you voiced like how meaningful the connection was for you immediately, which was like I imagine that was like quite a connective thing for that person to hear.
And she did too.
She did too, right?
She did like say, and so I knew it was shared. I knew before with
and you knew it in it,
of course.
Yeah, but to voice it is really nice to reinforce the connection.
And she was saying, it felt like when you were leaving, a lover was going out, and it was a bit like sad.
So you did that exercise first with her. So the exercise is you were the
Good.
you were the one doing the you were the one following first.
Yeah.
That's right. So she called you in and beckoned you away. That's the exercise, and it's like learning to like, how does it feel to be? Do I want to follow the invitation to come closer? How does it feel to be asked to go away? And then we did it, and I'm curious because we haven't really spoken about that since. I'm curious how much of that first interaction, because it was quite intense. So I imagine there was like still a lot of resonance from that in you when we started the next interaction, which was you calling me in. Do you recall?
Yeah, I do recall, and it was really interesting because it was really deep and profound with her.
Yeah.
And I wanted to stay in that state of being able to hold this presence and quality, because I really believe in the quality of the presence that you can have make a shift in the way you can connect. And with you, I wanted to stay in this, and I could notice people laughing, like, and taking this as a game and trying to also, let's say, ease the sensation inside through laughing, and not holding and be standing in front of this.
Right. And there's many things you can do with this game. It's a great activity, eh? But you were like, let's play this game seriously and like stay within the presence. And then what?
And it was beautiful to have you coming in.
You just called me in all the way, which is interesting. It was just like non-stop, and I just didn't resist at all. There was not even a thought to resist, actually. I just felt, I'd like to hear you continue to explain before I jump in, actually. Sorry, yeah.
I was inviting you, and you were walking slowly, and I saw also in you this quality of presence in this moment that was beautiful. And that's why I was like, keep calling it and confident in holding it to until maybe a little stop before we went into hugging.
Oh yeah.
And it felt really good, and it felt like also this little stop was not even a way of saying I don't want you closer. It was just, let's check with myself. I'm not rushing to physical contact, so to really notice if I'm ready to host this hug, or it's like an automatically default mode for me to it's easier. I'm at ease with everyone. I can hug everyone.
But when I think back, I think it did diffuse slightly some of the intensity.
The hug?
I think so. Yeah. I don't trust my memory entirely because it was quite a while ago. Or the last like 5 years, not that long. But my slight memory is that maybe it like felt like quite fast that we broke into a hug, and that, but then the intensity, then we regained eye contact, and then it was just, then you sent me all the way back.
Pushing back, yeah.
And how was that? Any memory of that particularly?
I think it was good also, like a good connection happening, and also letting go of the connection, coming back to myself as you were going away.
Yeah, cool.
What did you felt?
Well, by far the most resonant part for me was going back. And coming forward, I felt like, oh wow, surprised by how much emotion I felt. I wasn't expecting to be like emotional. And there was like a real, it was like it wasn't a sadness, but there was like tears almost, I was almost welling up with tears. Like the beauty of connection.
I noticed those tears, but I was questioning, where did it come from?
Yeah, I wasn't questioning it at that moment. It just felt, you noticed it in me.
Yeah.
And
I'm curious, like, if you
I wonder if there was something of like you still having some of the intensity of the previous interaction in you, and so it felt like, whoa, there's something intense, because I perceived something intense in you, but I assumed it was like about our interaction, but now I'm thinking, maybe there was just like, so there was a lot of activation in your body from the previous thing, maybe. Not sure. But I wasn't questioning it. It just felt like quite beautiful and connected in a way that I hadn't anticipated. So that was like, whoa, intense and beautiful. And then when you sent me away, it felt like, I like this kind of feeling very strongly reminded me of the feeling of saying goodbye to a good friend who I know I'm not going to see for a long time, which was also very surprising. That, wow, I remember that feeling. It's really sadness and gratitude. But like, yeah, And at that point, I think I was just in a memory, or not a specific memory, but like a memory of a feeling that felt meaningful, and I felt happy to be like reminded of that phenomenon. So that I was like, whoa, that was more intense than I anticipated and more interesting than I anticipated. So that was cool. I noticed some envy that you had this really intimate connection as well. Like, oh yeah, that sounds great.
You now?
Yeah. I was like, oh man, I wish I'd had one of those.
Yeah. And
But also like, yeah, really happy for you as well. Yeah, it's like wonderful. Like these exercises they're an exercise, but they're like also a real interaction in a sense, although they're like structured, and it's led to this organic flourishing of a new connection for you. So that's awesome, man.
yeah, it's pretty awesome. And it has been really interesting also what has followed with this girl, because she has a boyfriend and I have a girlfriend,
And you're both open.
She is not open, and now because I'm traveling, I could be open, but like I don't really use it. So we met, and because we wanted to connect again, of course. But we spoke really fast about what do we want about this connection that we have, knowing the boundaries and our limits because of our relationship. And now because I have my girlfriend arriving in a few days from now, I didn't want anything sexual.
No.
But I wanted to explore how deep can we go as a connection with her, if she would want to. And she expressed exactly the same thing. Like, I'm now in a period of exploring how deep can I connect with someone and a man with not crossing over my own boundaries of would it feel wrong after. And so it was really beautiful, and we came here actually to spend some time together, to talk, to hug, to spend time like really enjoying the beautiful like presence of a body and a soul that you connect with. And respecting also our known boundaries.
Yeah, and yeah, I guess it's in like most people in monogamous relationships where that kind of interaction is like not allowed or something, right? And so I'm curious like how communication with your and agreements with your partners are in relation to those kind of things. It's like an interesting topic.
At the moment, it's a little bit confusing for me. I think I want to talk with her. I met her in November, just
Your
final girlfriend now. And I'm really, really in love. Like, it's beautiful connection that we have. And I met her at a point of my life where I was in open relationship, and I was also out of my Tantra teacher training. That made me want to change the way I relate those open relationships, because like I remember my teacher was saying, like, if you want to find some water in the soil, you don't go and do like small little holes. You go profoundly in one, in depth. And this for the spiritual path, but also this for relationships, friends or like lover.
Yeah.
And I was more in that energy at the moment I met her, but I still wanted like to be free. So I told her exactly this, like, I want to invest more and be devoted to someone, but I still think I need this freedom. But because of the beautiful connection we had, I was not consuming. I hate consuming, but in a way I kind of see how it can be related to consumerism, because of our society and the way we are raised. And so I was not having other relationships with girls, and I told like 2 other girls that I was seeing at the moment no and stuff. And we developed this beautiful relation we have now. And I was just at some point we decided to close it, because
so it was technically open in the beginning. The openness was never even explored. You didn't have any desire for it. And actually, let's just close it down to a monogamous.
And what I found beautiful is like she was telling me, I don't mind giving me the freedom, but I won't use it because I'm not in that space. And now that I'm leaning into this relationship, I'm like focusing on you, and there's no space for me to explore the rest. I was like, whoa, big move on her, and I respect her so much for giving me this space and not taking it. It's
takes a lot of sense of security, I imagine, for her to do that. That like she knows that well, what is behind that? Is it like a sense that there's no fear that will lead to a separation, that you might meet someone else, or it's like if that happens, that's okay, or
a bit of both, and maybe fear unspoken that she could have felt that she was not communicating, even if I tried to open the communication, that she allowed this because she knew I was needing this at the moment, and she kind of felt like I love him as he is now, and I don't want to put constraint on him. But I can imagine maybe it was a little bit of fear also of losing me.
And so you were like, okay, I'll take that, or you were like, no, I'm going to close it on my end.
At this moment, I was okay. I'll take this, and but I want you to know that I cherish what we have, and you're like a big priority for me now.
Yeah.
Which brings to another priority I had at the time, was my travel, the one I'm doing now for 6 months.
So that was with like 2 months into the relationship.
Yeah. So I also was very open about this travel, and that it was one of my top priority, and that I was gonna go. So when I was going, I wanted to be able to be open and more like free to explore beautiful connection with like this girl I met. And now I'm questioning that sexual intercourse needs to happen to have beautiful connection.
So maybe one doesn't need to have sex to have beautiful connection. Yeah. And
I'm trying to play on this. I know it's a possibility that it happens, but also with this girl, like if she had no boyfriend, for example, and if I would meet my girlfriend further away from now, maybe I would have desired this sexual intercourse. But I'm trying to think of like short dopamine hack, and it could have like satisfied me in the short term, but in the long term, does it really serves me?
Right. There was this deeper sense. We spoke the other day briefly about this, and it was like this deeper sense of like meaning in devotion, and like what is devotion and commitment, and like how beautiful is that, and like just making the choice to like double down into that well. That's a powerful move for oneself. Beautiful. Yeah, with me, it's I noticed like there's also this element of just cultivating an okayness with not having to just follow the craving. It's like, oh, there's a craving of some kind, and we're like, where is that? Do I need anything there? Do I actually need to do that thing that nourishes the craving? Do I need to eat the chocolate bar? I need to be with this woman. Yeah, and it kind of parallels what's interesting is it's a different version of the story of where I'm at with relationships right now, I guess. Which is I'm single, and I've been dating. I've probably been on dates with like 5 or 6 people this year who I was like interested in, and I've just not had any sexual intimacy with any of them. That's not true. There was nearly. There was that one person that there was intimacy with. Keep going. And but we stopped it very quickly, and we didn't have sex, and we barely had sex with it. But yeah, there's like this decision really, which is like I want to get to know people as friends, and sex blinds. It's like it's so powerful, like creating this deeper. It like digs a deeper well, but it's not ready for the deeper well necessarily, and so it can be. I see in my past like being pulled into relationships that weren't going to last, and now I really want I mean, I think I always wanted, but now I just don't want to get into relationships that can't last the duration. I want to be in something long term and just committed to making that work. And when I have sex with people, this deep entanglement happens before I'm aware of whether there's compatibility. It doesn't take that long, at least with these few people I've been on dates with this year. Within 2, 3, 4, 5 dates, it's become apparent that these people aren't actually like compatible with what I'm looking for. And that's great, because then I've just become like really close friends, and there is an intimacy with these people.
Yeah, I know.
It's totally non-sexual, totally platonic, and it's great. I've suddenly got I've got a bunch of new female friends, and there's like intimacy there, like interpersonally, and sometimes like we cuddling and stuff, and there's like a great connection, and they're brought into my friendship network, and that's been great.
I've been exploring this deep intimacy and deep sensuality with people I know without sex intimacy.
Yeah, where's the line where sensuality ends and sexuality begins?
It's interesting, huh?
It's an interesting line, man. Yeah, it is, and that's where I was like, oh no, there was one person I was sexual with, because we were like skating on that line, and there's this momentum builds in the moment. Sometimes it's like, whoa, we just went sexual. There's the energy has shifted, and we're both aware of it, and we both put the brakes. Well, it happened a couple of times, and I think each of us put the brakes on at different times, but it was collaborative effort. So that was a sexual thing. That felt sexual. It wasn't like intercourse, but it was like a different energy to the physical connection. And I don't know if it can be defined easily.
What is the furthest interaction you had that was sensual and not sexual?
I think like laying naked in bed with somebody in a way where it just feels platonic. I can be completely naked with a woman and it does not feel sexual. That's totally possible. And then within that, like cuddling, spooning, I think there's like a hand on the breast can feel platonic. There's I don't know if like a nipple touch in a spoon. That's where you're starting to skirt, for me at least. I'm starting to skirt a line. If my hands are touching a nipple in a spoon, I think that can be platonic.
I think it can be either.
There's like also like a kind of head-to-head caress which feels nourishing, and there's a point at which just like the head-to-head goes beyond platonic, and there's also, I think there's something between platonic and sensual. And so I think I'm okay with being sensual and not sexual right now. When does sensual become sexual? I think it's hard to define, but there's a clear on and off. Like that's sexual, that's not. I just know it. If I turn awareness on to it, it's like this is sexual. There's never any doubt if I question is this sexual or not. I know it, but it's quite hard to like to describe where that line is. But it's somewhere between the finger and the nipple.
I think now that you say this, my furthest sensual interaction might have been sexual.
Don't let me define what is for you. You're questioning your own story, though.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I will put context into it. So, it's a girl I have met at an ecstatic dance, and she's a really good dancer and does like dance therapy, and like she's been using dance and movement since a long time, and she's contact dancer. So we met and we contact dance together, and like, you know.
Man, I've had dances that were sexual and not sensual.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And the alchemy we had in this dance made us want to connect more and like, find other places we could dance, and that's we did. And at some point, she invited me at her place to like go do a night where we would like cuddle, contact dance, and Thai massage and stuff with like a few other people. And at first I was like, this might be an invitation to an orgy. So I called a friend and we went, with not knowing what we wanted, but like being able to know also that if it was going this way, that I could be able, like we could be able to listen to ourselves and like find, do we want this or not?
Right.
It was not about orgy, and I were like beautiful moment of like cat cuddling, oxytocin sharing, and it was amazing. And we connected again really deeply. and she invited me another time just with her to explore contact dance with oil.
Contact dance with oil.
Yeah.
And no clothes.
Only underwear on genitals.
Genital underwear.
Yeah.
Best kind of underwear.
Yeah.
Or the worst kind of underwear, depending what you...
So this was beautiful in many ways, just like having this sensual movement and like dancing in contact, skin to skin with the oil, just like sweeping. Woo! It was really beautiful. And
and your original claim was that was sensual, and now you're questioning it.
Yeah, because of course there were like arousal also of sexual energy, but we didn't went into sexual intercourse.
There's this thing which is like an energy can arise in the body, and then a decision can be made about what to do with it, and that's a gray area, man. Fuck. Yeah. So does one want to avoid all situations where one even feels sexual energy? Is that even possible?
I think you should not suppress sexual energy. They're there, but you can do.
You can choose to not be in situations where sexual energy will arise,
or you can
choose to have it and not
the sexual energy and not act on it.
Exactly. And I think both those choices are reasonable. Well, I think it's okay to choose to I don't even want to be in spaces where sexual energy is arising, because unless it's like leading towards. I think that's not a choice I'm making. I think I'm at a similar point in the line where you are, which is like I don't want to act on sexual energy unless it feels like it's leaning towards. If it's with someone who I'm like having a beautiful connection with, if it's not going to lead to something long and serious, I want to avoid sexual action. We agreed.
Yeah. I think it's the difference between like being reactive or respond to the situation.
Reactive or responsive.
Yeah.
Reactive is what perhaps I've been historically, or maybe it was a different choice, but yeah, reactive is
you have the impulse and the sexual energy is there, and therefore you act on it. Or responsive, you take time to acknowledge the presence of it and notice where you want to go with it.
Right. Reactive, the energy is pulling you. Responsive, you are pulling the energy.
Yeah. There's another place where I've been really, really into. I don't even know if it's sensual, but it's a weird one. Like in my Tantra teacher training, I met this amazing girl I've done contact dates with again. It's funny how contact leads to proximity.
It does, man. And dance in general, it doesn't have to be contact dance. I think like if someone's looking for a partner, just going and doing dance with no like intention of getting a girlfriend or something, it's just a wonderful place to meet someone with and like check the vibe. Are you wearing the camera may have died?
It will soon, that's why I'm shaking, but it's still okay. So I met this girl and we did like Tantra massage to each other. We chose to exchange a Tantra massage to really learn how it was.
What is a Tantra massage? For the viewers at home.
Full body massage that goes addressing also the sexual energy and work with the genitals, of course, to unleash the sexual potency. And
there's an orgasmic release. Is that one of the objectives?
The aim is to reconnect to the sexual energy and go heal maybe traumas that might sit here. And the goal is not first the orgasm. If it is going there, it is okay. But it's also a way of trying to understand different type of sensations and different type of orgasms. So we were on this Tantra teacher training working a lot on polarities and the feminine energy and the masculine energy. So for me, it was really interesting to do a massage, a full body massage naked.
Naked as the masseuse and both people naked.
Both people naked. And try to stay in this masculine energy where I know my goal is to give a massage, keeping the verticality of the masseur and not being in the sexual energy and try a kind of exchange.
Right.
So it was really interesting to see like the sexual energy rise as I was the masseur, and I would see that she was going through like big waves of pleasure,
Yeah.
and she was excited. And after also, when I closed and I ended the massage, I just got out and like rested near her. He's not breaking the silence, so she could integrate also. And she came onto me just like hugging. And it started to feel like she wanted more. And I was a bit lost for a second. But I came back to this like, no, this was your time to receive. And let's not engage into more interaction because it's gonna break this moment you had. And I want you to stay with this.
Beautiful.
And if something needs to happen at some other moment, it will be. But then it will be two different experiences.
Great.
And staying on my ground. Like,
Wonderful. And that just feels so good that you're like in integrity, as I say, and you like had an intention. You didn't let that sexual impulse that arose, and there was a slight bit of moment of like, you pull back and you're like, no, this is what I'm here for. I'm here to support this person in this process. I'm curious about like how the trauma kind of processing works in that process.
Sexual energy are charged, like a minor trauma, big trauma, like you can feel a lot about like, yeah, we store a lot in our genitals and with our sexual energies, and just reconnecting and trying to listen to your energies and body while in the massage is a really beautiful way to just, it's kind of a meditation while in the massage, which is really beautiful. And for me, it was a therapy of like being able to give it and receive it was a therapy as well. Like both were really, really intense and interesting.
In both roles, you can go in with this intention of just noticing what's going on psychologically.
Gonna
pee. This is gonna be a first on the podcast. Urination during the shot.
I can let it flow.
Just let it flow. This is it. Noticing bodily impulses, and letting them go. And this is I think it's like, I wonder what this was like for hunter-gatherers. I guess pretty used to like being around each other, kind of naked and more bodily and more natural. And this space of the garden kind of feels like a bit closer to that. There's like nakedness in a way that doesn't feel sexual frequently. People just like eating dinner with no clothes on and jumping in the lake. We got in the lake on Saturday or Sunday. I was just walking past and there were 5 people in there covered head to toe in mud. And so I just got in as well.
It's for you to experience this.
That was interesting because that was like that thing I was talking about at the beginning of the conversation about body consciousness. That was like the most I had exposed my body to people in the wide open, and people could just walk by who were wearing clothes and see me naked, which felt like an interesting dynamic. I was like, yeah, so that was part of like thinking that came, I was able to put myself in the situation from having reflected on noticing sort of the body consciousness and what I want to do about it, which was just like exposure therapy. And I don't think exposure therapy is always the right thing for people if it's too uncomfortable. But like that was the edge of my comfort zone, felt good. So it was fun. And then I noticed another moment where everyone was climbed up on this kind of, there's like a flagpole on this huge platform. And I noticed some hesitation in going up there. And I just paused for a moment. I was like, oh, that's fear. Okay, well, I don't even know what I'm afraid of. I just want to see what happens if I go through that. And I just climbed up. And someone had peed on the platform. They were all in very animalistic mode. And I was climbing and they were like, I think they saw me as like less in animal mode than them. And they're like, oh, there's pee there. And I paused and then I just sniffed it. And I climbed up over it. And I didn't care. We were in the lake. It didn't matter. Okay, that one's cut. So you're not on camera anymore.
No. I can
come on over. Squeeze in to shot.
Yeah. We need to take it out. Down.
Good. So we're wrapping up. Yeah. What were you saying before you suddenly went to the bathroom?
I don't know.
I think, I was just trying to sum up like my understanding of what you shared about the tantric massage, which was there's an opportunity in that for both the masseuse and the massaged to pay attention to what sexual energies are rising and like what kind of fears and desires are in that. And through that process, there's one can process some challenges we all have in relation to sensual and sexual touch, and just learn a bit more about ourselves and maybe release some stuff. Does that feel like a somewhat accurate reflection?
Yeah, I feel like it feels like also to sum up now that there is multiple way to explore connections with yourself and others, and being lonely or not, it's always a good experience to have, to find out what it brings to you.